everyone, welcome to my channel. So for today's video, I was super excited to do an unboxing and try on haul with you guys of my Beautylish Lucky Bag. So this is the special Fukubukuro that Beautylish does every year. This year I picked up their $150 Wayne Goss bag. In prior years I did just their normal Beautylish Lucky Bag, so if you guys are interested in that, definitely check out some of my previous videos. But basically this is a bag of goodies where I don't really know what's inside, other than that this year it's going to be all Wayne Goss products. So I've really enjoyed these in the past. They're a lot of fun. Beautylish is one of my favorite makeup retailers, and so I do find that the products they include tend to be ones that I do enjoy, and then even the ones that are sort of things that I didn't think I would like, I do usually end up finding some favorites from. So for this year, I decided to do the Wayne Goss one because I really love Wayne Goss as a brand, and I find that pretty much all of the products I've tried from his brand so far have worked really well for me. And so for today's video, I've also brought out all of those products so I can give you guys some comparisons, since I figure if you're watching this video, you're probably interested in Wayne Goss products generally. So without further ado, let's get into this unboxing. So let's open this up, and isn't this so cute? I love the packaging that they use. So they always have some special paper based on what the Lunar New Year is. So for context, in case you guys are totally unfamiliar with the concept of lucky bags, basically this is a practice that originated in Japan, where it's really popular for retailers around the end of the year, beginning of the new year, to basically put together these lucky bags that have like a ton of products in them, and then you don't know what you're getting, but you pay a set price, and the total value of the bag should be a lot more than what you paid for. So this year, 2024, is the year of the dragon, so hence these cute little dragon motifs. This is super, super adorable. I love this packaging and paper. Like, just look how pretty and luxe this is. I never really know what to do with pretty paper like this, and usually just end up keeping it for a while and then throwing it away. But if any of you have any clever ideas, please let me know. Oh, and on the back here, it does have a message. It says, "The dragons on this year's lucky bag symbolize good luck and fortune, along with power and change. We hope these surprises offer you moments of self-love that help you tap into your power in 2024. So that's cute. Very nice message there. So let's open this up. So inside we have the kind of more standard black Beautylish packaging. Side note, if you haven't ordered from Beautylish before, they are really great in terms of packaging everything up really nicely, and also their shipping is super, super fast. So this shipped like, I think, yesterday actually, and has already arrived, so very impressed with their shipping. All right, so all of the products are in this one big container here, and let's see what we got. So this is quite a lot of stuff. So first off, we have one of Wayne Goss's new brushes. This is the E1 brush. I do have several other brushes from this latest line, so these three face brushes over here. So I'll give you guys some comparisons, but I didn't actually end up getting any of the eye brushes. So very intrigued to try this out. This is like a large, fluffy eye brush, really good for laying down the initial pigment. Side note, Wayne Goss does have one of my favorite brush brands. Then we have a lip pencil. So let's see, this is in the shade Mauve, and I'm excited for this. I actually have another lip pencil from Wayne Goss that I do enjoy. I got that in a previous lucky bag, so I'll give you guys comparison swatches of all of these. Oh yeah, so here is Mauve, and the previous one I had was a lighter shade, Vintage Pink, though next to each other I guess these look kind of similar. Then we have his Essential Eye Kohl in the shade Granite. Excited about this as well. If you guys watched my Best of 2023 video, I did mention his eye kohl in the shade Tiger's Eye. So I'm excited to have another shade. I assume Granite is either a gray or black shade. And then we have one of his cream lipsticks in the shade Dahlia. And I actually think I already have this. Let me check. I brought out all the products. Yes, okay. So I do actually already have Dahlia. Let me show you guys what the shade looks like. It's sort of a light peachy nude. So I will put this brand new one aside and include this in a future giveaway for you guys. I do really love his formula though, and the shade Iris is one that also ended up in my best of 2023. Let's see. Next up, we have his Weightless Translucent Setting Powder. So I'm excited about this. I'm not usually a huge loose powder fan, but I have heard really good things about his powder, and so I've been wanting to try this out. It's a very similar packaging to the Laura Mercier. So let's see how well this works. And then we have one of the bronzers. So let's see, this is in the shade Bronze Glow and Medium Taupe. I was curious how they would do these complexion products that have different shades to them. Let me open this up just to see. I don't have his bronzer, so I am excited to try this out. Goss does do really nice minimalist luxury packaging. There's a nice weight to all of his products. So here is the shade. Okay, this looks like it should work for me. Maybe a tad bit deep for my winter complexion, but this will probably be really good sort of as a general year-round shade. Ooh, and then we have the luxury eye palette. This is in the shade Amber, which, to be honest, I'm not super jazzed about this color story. If I remember correctly, this is kind of the warmer color story. I think this one was less popular, which is why it's ending up in a lucky bag. Yeah, so this is like the very warm toned color story. So I guess that is one downside of getting the lucky bag. You are getting things at a discount, so they're going to pick the shades that are less popular. But I guess this will actually be good though for kind of a Lunar New Year inspired look. Lots of reds in this palette. And then I assume this is a blush palette. Yes. Okay, so this is Desert Blossom, which I am excited about this one because I actually have his other one, which is Sweet Wildflower. So I'll give you guys some comparisons of those two. But I'm very glad this is not the same as the one that I already have. And then the last two products, we have a lip gloss and another cream lipstick. So, okay, so the other cream lipstick is in Iris, which it's interesting to me. I only have two of his cream lipsticks and they are in the exact same shades as these two. So I don't really know what that says, but both of these will go into a giveaway for you guys at some point. As I just mentioned, I do really love Iris. Let me show you guys actually what Iris looks like. It's been like my most used shade of the year. It's a really pretty rosy shade. So yeah, when I eventually do a giveaway, one of you will receive 2 lipsticks instead of 1. And then in terms of the gloss, I have this in shade Cherry Blossom. So this is exciting. This is a new shade for me. These are the other 2 that I have from previously, and you can see they're actually a very different finish. So from previously, I have Hibiscus and Chrysanthemum, and so Cherry Blossom is a lot less shimmery. Interesting. So I am excited to try that out. So those are all of the products. I was curious if I would get one of his foundations because that's also a product I've been eyeing for a while and looked really nice. I guess it makes sense they probably wouldn't put in this kind of bag because, you know, what are the chances you would actually get your shade match? But I'm glad that I think I can use all of the other products other than these 2 lipsticks. And these 2 lipsticks I honestly do enjoy as well. It's just a matter of me already having them. So on the whole, I think the haul was pretty good. I will do some calculations later and at the end of the video kind of talk about how worth it I think this lucky bag was, just based on how much I like the products. But for now, I'm going to go off camera, put on some complexion products, and then be back to demo all of these new products with you guys. So I went off camera to do my base and my brows. If you guys are curious what I have on my face, as always, everything will be linked in the description box. And today I decided to use Kogen products that I hauled in my Japan luxury makeup haul video. That's the one that came out right before this one. So if you want to see the products in action, definitely check that out. And as a side note, I've been absolutely loving the Kogen Moisture Foundation. That's why I have on today. And it's basically the foundation I've used every time since I've done makeup, since hauling it, so would highly recommend that foundation. So before we dive into the Goss products, I did actually want to also demo for you guys Pat McGrath's new eye primer. I just got this in the mail, so this is actually my first impressions, but I've been excited about this product because I absolutely love Pat McGrath and eyeshadow is her forte. Wow, this is actually a very nice luxe bottle. I'm quite impressed. It's very heavy and luxurious, so not like a lot of the recent releases she's come out with where the packaging is not actually very luxe, so very pleased with this. And this has a 12-month shelf life. It is a clear eyeshadow primer, which is great for folks with deeper skin tones. If you guys have watched my channel for a while, you know that my current favorite primer is the ABH eye primer, but one downside of that primer is it's very, very white, so I'm not really sure how well it works for folks with deeper skin tones. This one being clear is definitely quite universal. Huh, interesting. It feels quite emollient on the skin. It almost feels like you're applying kind of a moisturizer. It doesn't feel sticky or tacky at all like some primers. So I'm gonna just let that sit while I'm doing the rest of my makeup and then kind of save eyeshadow for towards the end, so that way this has plenty of time to set. And just bringing the brightness down a little bit as well so you guys can see more clearly. So now let's actually get started by setting my complexion with this translucent powder. I am quite curious about this because Wayne Goss does try to be very age inclusive with his brand, and so generally his products are supposed to work quite well for dry skin types. And of course, powder is one of the trickiest products when it comes to folks with dry skin. So I'm going to start by using his F5 brush. So this is one of his latest release brushes. It's a very, very fluffy brush. I've mostly used this for highlighter so far, but let's try this under the eyes. It's a very nice, finely milled powder. And actually, since I kind of want a light dusting of powder, let's try using this around the face. And for context, I'm someone who is usually pretty picky with powder because I find that with my drier skin type, a lot of powders end up just making my skin feel really dry. And I also am very picky with loose powders because I really don't like the mess. But okay, that's a very light smattering. So I mostly put it on this side and then also my forehead. I forgot to do it half and half, but hopefully this gives you a little bit of a sense of the mattification. So here, this side is a bit more matte for sure compared to this side over here. Now let's just mattify this side as well. I'm taking a very light touch today because the weather is quite cold where I am, and so the air's been pretty dry, so I don't think I actually need that much setting. So taking a closer look, I think that did a pretty good job overall. I only needed kind of a small amount. That said, I will say on areas around my nose where I put concealer, I feel like it's not very flattering. Let me try to bring you guys closer. I don't know if you guys can tell, but it kind of set this area in a bit of a patchy way. It could just be the interaction of this concealer with this powder. The Cogando liquid concealer doesn't really need much in order to set. It's already like relatively matte, but I do feel like this powder kind of took it from being matte to being really dry looking. The powder looks fine on areas where I just have foundation because I think the moisture foundation is sufficiently luminous that it was okay with this powder, but yeah, just something to note, especially if you have really dry skin. I'm not actually sure that this is that good because the drier areas around my face are looking a little crusty now. But we'll have to take a look as well to see how this looks later on in today's video because sometimes powder looks better as your oils mingle with it. So now let's do lips because my lips are super, super dry. So I'm going to first go in with this lip liner, and it's actually very, very sharp. So I don't know if you guys will be able to see this swatch very well. Here is the shade Mauve. It's actually a lot warmer toned than I would expect from something called Mauve. It can be very precise given how sharp this is. And I'm going to fill my lips totally in just so you guys can really see the shade, and then we'll go over it with the lip gloss. Okay, so there we have the shade Mauve all over my lips. I will say I'm kind of surprised about the shade name. This does not look mauve at all to me. This looks relatively warm. There's almost kind of like a hint of terracotta to it. Like, you know, my dress here is very like reddish orange, and I feel like this actually matches. It doesn't look cool toned at all. And just to give you guys a comparison, I have Vintage Pink, which is also in his line, and this is the shade Vintage Pink. Yeah, sorry, these swatches look terrible, but Vintage Pink is much lighter and taupier in shade, but you can see that both of these have a certain warm undertone to them. So interesting. One thing to note, I mean, I like the shade, but I wouldn't really call it mauve. So if you're looking online, you might want to keep that in mind. Now let's put on Cherry Blossom. And I do love his formula. It's very nourishing. It has a minty taste to it, which is kind of interesting. Very refreshing. Tiny bit of plumping action from the mint, and really just hugs your lips. Ooh, that's pretty. And I like this shade. I feel like Cherry Blossom is a very good everyday shade. Let me give you guys a swatch again. So here we go. The formula, when you apply it, definitely has a certain stickiness, but when you slide your lips together, there's none of that tack or stick. The stickiness just helps it kind of adhere to the lips. So I do really love this formulation. And just to give you guys some comparison swatches, here is Hibiscus. So this one is lighter and way more shimmery. And then Chrysanthemum is sort of a chocolatey shade. So here we have Cherry Blossom, Hibiscus, Chrysanthemum. And it's good to know there's multiple finishes in this as well, because I had only previously tried the High Shine finish. And even though these are high shine, I would say the shimmery ones still look relatively natural on the lips just because the pearl is pretty fine. So it's not going to look like you have metallic lips necessarily. But I think if you want something more everyday friendly, this more satin sheen from Cherry Blossom is the way to go. So now let's bronze things up with this bronzer duo. So basically there's two sides. One is matte and cooler tone. That's this one over here, medium taupe. And then the other bronze glow is warmer, has some shimmer, and is more for bronzing. So this is the bronze powder. You can see there's a bit of gold shimmer in it. And this is the kind of sculpting contour shade. So here are the swatches. I think this should be able to work on my skin. They do look a little bit deep. I usually prefer to have a lighter shade and just kind of build it up. Recently, especially in the wintertime, I've been less into a heavily bronzed look, but it's nice having these two different formulas together so you can kind of have some versatility. So I'm going to go in with the F1 brush. This is one of his recent releases as well. I've really been enjoying this brush. So I'm going to just first take a tiny bit of that contour shade and, whew, okay, that is pigmented. Let's split this across my two cheeks. Okay. Tad bit, oh yeah, it is a little patchy on application. I might not have powdered enough because I was trying to keep the powder very light, but yeah. So actually let me switch over to his F3 brush. This one is a little bit better for buffing purposes. Oh, yikes. Oof, oh, this is not going well. You guys see how patchy that is? Ah, what is happening? Oh, yikes. Okay, I really messed that part up, huh? That's unfortunate. I was not expecting that. I mean, it could just be that this is just a little bit too pigmented for my skin tone. I feel like it's picking up way too much, and as you guys can see, even though this is a pretty firm brush, I'm sort of struggling to blend it out. You can very much just see wherever I first applied it is where it wants to stick. Yikes. Okay, I might need to cover this up with a little bit of foundation and be right back. Alrighty, so in the interest of not interfering too much with today's wear test, I just took the sponge that I used for foundation concealer and sort of dabbed over my cheeks. So it's not like an actual new layer of foundation or concealer. I just tried to blur out a little bit of the bronzer, though you can still see it's kind of streaky where that's poking through. It kind of looks like I have hyperpigmentation, which I don't on my cheeks. So yeah, not great, but I also took out my Face Pro from Sonia G to try to give this an additional chance with a different brush. This is fluffier, so I'm hoping that it won't pick up quite as much product. So let's actually try going into the bronze side this time, and I'm gonna really tap off because this is quite pigmented for my current complexion. Let's try the forehead. Okay, again, I'm having this problem where it just doesn't really want to blend out. I don't know if you guys can see, but kind of wherever I just initially place the product, it kind of sticks immediately. And so even afterward, when I'm kind of trying to go over it, it doesn't really give me a nice blend. And this is not at all what I anticipated. I didn't put even that much foundation on today, so I'm surprised that it's sticking so much. But at least the bronzer seems to be a little bit more subtle than the contour, so I think it looks less bad. But this is definitely kind of disappointing. So I'm just gonna do some on my cheeks, and yeah, okay, definitely with this fluffier brush and with this bronze side, I think I'm having a little bit more luck. So that's good. So this is not total bust. I can at least use the shade Bronze Glow. But it is disappointing because I mean, I have a lot of bronzers in my collection right now. So realistically, am I going to reach for this after today? Honestly, probably not. I mean, I'll give it some more chances just so I can give you guys some reviews, but I mean, can you see that little blotch I have there? That's not like from my skin, that's just from when I first applied this side. Do I even dare go back into this? Like, okay, I'll take a tiny bit of this, again, kind of really tap it off and just see. Okay, I think that's okay, but yeah, again, it doesn't look good. I don't know if you guys can see. Doing that again, now there's again just this patch of this contour shade. For some reason, this contour shade just really does not want to blend out on my skin. I will, I guess, try this with some other products. Like maybe it's just, it really doesn't like the coconut dough, but I mean, I used this powder in between. So you'd think that kind of resting on top of this powder, it should do well, but this is a pretty muddy, patchy blend overall. Let's see, do I even dare use this to contour my nose? This is probably going to be a bad idea, but let's just try to take a tiny, tiny bit of it on this fluffy Wayne Goss F5 brush and just put that on my nose. Okay, I think I managed to keep it light enough that hopefully that's okay. Not the best shade ever, but I guess I can make it work. It is looking a tad bit muddy again. I just don't understand why this particular shade, at least for me, just really, really doesn't want to blend out. It's just like wherever I put it, that's where it's going to stick. All right, so that is sadly a bust, but let's go into the blush and glow. And since I do have the other palette of this, I have some experience with this formula, so I'll share with you guys my thoughts. So let's first give you guys some swatches of the new palette that I got. So we have the shade Petal, really cute peachy pink shade. This is a matte blush. And then we have Nectar, which is the highlight. This is sort of a pinky peachy highlight. Really, really pretty. And that is from the Desert Blossom palette. The other one I have, which I picked up separately, was Sweet Wildflower. And I was actually debating between these two, so it'll be interesting to see how they look. So here's the blush in that palette called Dusty Rose. And then we have Honeysuckle, which is the highlight. All right, so overall, I would say that the Sweet Wildflower palette is definitely warmer. The blush is deeper, but the highlight is lighter. So this is more of a light champagne. This is more of a peachy pink. So that is a little bit confusing. I guess overall, if you want a warmer color story, you should go with Sweet Wildflower. And if you want a slightly more pinky color story, pinky peachy, you should go with Desert Blossom. But do note that the highlight is actually lighter in the Sweet Wildflower palette. So for this, I'm going to go back in with that F1 brush from Wayne Goss and sweep this on the cheeks. So as you can see, this is going on a lot better than the bronzer. So I do find that this formula of blush is super easy to use. You can see it's not that pigmented, so you can actually really dig your brush in and have no issues. It blends out super easily as well. Now, my one gripe with this blush from my previous experiences with the other colorway is that it's not the most long lasting on the skin. I think maybe in part because it is this very powdery finish, it does have a tendency to flake off a bit over the course of the day. And as you can see, if you want to really get pigmentation, you do need to spend some time building it up. I do find it kind of fades away after a while. So I wouldn't say this is my favorite blush formula, but it overall performs decently and definitely way better than the bronzer, at least on my skin. So that's really pretty. I like that flush overall. And then going back in with that F5 brush, I have been cleaning these brushes off in between. Let's try using this with the highlight. So this is overall a relatively subtle highlight. You can actually mix these two together if you want to get more of a shimmer blush, or you can apply them separately like I am today. So it's not going to be super high shine, but it is going to give you a little bit of a textured finish. So that is one thing to be aware of. So I don't know if it'll pick up on camera. Let me actually bring you guys closer again. But you might be able to see the shine itself is not totally smooth. Let me actually go back in with the blush brush just to try to smooth it out a little bit. Hopefully that helps. Yeah, I think that helped. But yeah, the highlight does tend to emphasize texture a little bit. When you move your face, it doesn't look totally smooth. So now let's get into this eyeshadow palette. I am super intrigued by this because I've been eyeing Wayne Goss's formulas for eyeshadow for a while, but never really decided to pick them up. So let's first do some swatches. So the names are just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1 is this kind of peachy transition shade. 2 is a little bit more of an ochre shade. Sorry, I just realized you can't see. And then this shade is actually kind of a satin shade. This shade is interesting. This looks kind of like a matte with a little bit of sparkle in it. So this is sort of a mid-tone matte shade. It has some sparkle, but once you swatch it, the sparkles kind of go away. It's very orangey. And then we have this matte shade. So this is your deepening shade. And okay, this actually does pack some punch in terms of depth. Overall, very sunset inspired color story. And then here we have the one glittery shade in the palette. So this definitely has some shine to it. So here's the close-up of the shades. So you do have quite a lot of mattes. As I mentioned, these two are actually not pure mattes. This one has some satin. This one has a tiny bit of sparkle in it, but honestly swatched, they all do kind of look like mattes, and this is like the one shimmer that you have. This does look really pretty though. So I feel like I've been on a major cool undertone kick in terms of eyeshadows lately, so this is very different, but we'll see how this goes. So I'm gonna go in with that E1 brush that came with this bag and go into this first shade. And side note, there is a lot of kick up with these formulas. They're very dry, so the moment you touch them with your brush, you're going to get some kick up in the pan. So I'm just gonna kind of use this to sort of set my lid. This is very similar to my natural skin tone, so I don't know if you guys can actually see this shade, but yeah, it's very similar to my skin tone. All right, well, at least that makes it easy. I can just kind of put it everywhere, even maybe drag some along the lower lash line as well, just to further set things. And then let me go in with the shade One Step Up. And this brush is quite nice. I do really love Wayne Goss's brushes. This is very soft. Usually I prefer going in with crease brushes at this stage, but this is making very quick work of just setting up the initial shades. So that's nice. I also do like that the tip is actually quite precise. So you can use this as well, like on the lower lash line area, just to kind of sweep things in a less precise manner. And then I'm gonna just keep on using this brush as much as possible. So I'm gonna go into this shade now and put some of this in the outer portion. Let's just continue building things up. That definitely brought in a lot more oranginess to this look. Yeah, on the lids, this shade definitely doesn't have much of a distinct texture from the mattes. So even though it's got those tiny shimmery particles in pan, I would say you can just use this as you would a matte. And now I'm going in with a Goss 17 brush into the deepest shade. This is from one of his older collections, so I don't think you can actually get this brush anymore, but I really loved the crease brushes that he came out with years ago. I have so many of his OG brushes, and I was excited when he released his new brushes because I was hoping he would bring back some of the old ones, but still waiting for him to re-release some crease brushes because those were my favorites. And this shade is quite nice for this color story too. In general, this is not my favorite color story, but I think if you're going for a fiery look, this shade definitely is going to help you achieve that. In general, this is giving me more dragon vibes than I was really planning on, but I don't dislike it. I mean, it's nice. Okay, so now I'm going to go into this satin shade first, just because I'm kind of curious how this looks, and I'm just going to put this sort of in the center of the lid, just in case you wanted to do a more subtle look. This is kind of what you would get. So I'm not going to take it all the way in because I do want to go in with that shimmery shade. But in case you guys wanted to do an overall matte look, I think it would basically look something like this. And now going in with the shimmer shade, I assume this is applied best with the finger. Ooh, okay, actually this is quite pretty. It definitely is a lot wetter than I anticipated. Now, one thing I will note is usually in my experience, these sorts of shades have a tendency to hard pan over time. So I'm gonna have to look out for that, but they do apply really beautifully when they are not hard panned. So this doesn't have any base pigment to it. It's definitely like a glitter topper. Probably actually should have put a little bit more pigment on my lids before going in with this. I will say I am having to go into this quite a lot to get the level of shine that I want. So this is probably best for someone who just wants a tiny bit of sparkle, not like me. I'm just trying to like cover my entire lids with sparkle. But it is very pretty. Like, it's not gonna give you a super even sparkle, but if you do want that sort of twinkle effect, this will give that to you. And now for the lower lash line, I'm going in with this Goss number 7 brush. This was from one of his previous releases as well. And let's see, I guess I'll first just dip into the deepest shade and run this along the outer edge. And then in the inner portion, I'm going to first just go in with the Satin shade and line that lower lash line. And then I'm kind of skeptical this will pick this up, but let's try going in with this shade and see if we can get any of that sparkle. Okay, yeah, that's not really picking up, but let me actually go in with this Sonia G builder brush and let's see if we can get any of that sparkle. Yeah, this is not really sticking down here. Maybe if I put a tacky primer or use some mixing liquid, but that's okay. I wasn't expecting it to necessarily adhere. Use that E1 just to kind of clean up the edges over here. So there we have the eyeshadow look with the Color Story Amber. What do you guys think? So normally I would go off camera for this part with the eyeliner, but since this is one of the items, I'm going to give you guys some swatches and do this on camera. So Granite is, as the name implies, sort of a charcoal black shade. To give you guys a comparison, I have his Tiger's Eye shade. I've been absolutely loving this shade. This is a brown shade that does have a little bit of shimmer in it, so it has a bit of a golden reflect. So normally eyeliner is a step I prefer to do off camera, but I'm going to try to do it with you guys just so you can see how this works. So usually with my Goss eyeliner, I only use it in my waterline, but today I'm going to try it on the lid as well. Oof. It is kind of dragging on the lids. This might also be because it's brand new, but yeah, definitely not the most comfortable glide at the moment. But good level of pigmentation. I do feel like I'm kind of having to pull my eyes. So side note, I do think as I'm putting this on, oops, wow. I used so much pressure, the tip actually fell off. But I am having a hard time really getting it to stick on my lids. A little bit of fallout as well. All right, yeah, I don't think I like this as liner on my lash line. It's really hard to drag across, and I feel like the wing's not looking that great. But let's put it where I normally like it, which is in the waterline. And you can see that glides really easily and is immediately pigmented. So I can definitely vouch for this as a waterline liner. It won't last as long as some other formulas. So if you guys watched my best of 2023 video, you know my ride or die is the Sister Anne liner. That's my favorite for the waterline, but I do also, this was kind of like the runner up to that, at least in the shade Tiger's Eye. So I do really like this liner used in that way, but on the lid portion like this, I do not like this at all. That is not comfortable, and I feel like it doesn't look that good either. All right, I'm gonna go in right now with one of my Esom brushes and just try to diffuse this liner a little bit, because unlike my usual brush liner, it's not nearly as precise. So let's try to just make this work. I suppose overall this is quite a fiery look. I do wonder, I guess maybe they tried to curate the color story for this as well to kind of fit the whole dragon vibe. I think, you know, we have cherry blossom, we have peachy blush, and then we have this amber eyeshadow. If you guys pick this up as well, I'd be very curious what you got in your bag. I always wonder to what extent they kind of give everyone almost the same thing versus if people end up with very different things. I think for the normal Lucky Bag, there is a fair amount of variability, but for this Goss one, I'm not really sure how much variety they can have. Alrighty, so here we have the final look. What do you guys think? So I went off camera to do some quick calculations, and I think the total value of this bag, provided I didn't forget anything, which hopefully I didn't, is $311. So that's pretty good. For context, I paid $150 for the bag plus $20 of shipping. So the total value definitely exceeds that. Now, I did also check if I took out the bronzer plus the two lipsticks I already have, the total value is $210, which is still good compared to the $170 that I paid for it, but with the caveat, of course, that I didn't get to select my shades. So on the whole, I would say that I'm happy that I picked this up. I think this was a lot of fun, and I do actually like the look that I came up with. Now, to run through the products individually, I would say that this weightless powder is definitely one I'm gonna have to try again. It did not impress me upon this initial impressions. I felt like it was very drying where I had my concealer, and in general just hasn't really stood out to me otherwise as being a particularly good powder. In terms of the eyeshadow, I think the quality is pretty good overall. I will say I'm not a huge fan of this kind of formulation. I also see this formula a lot in Japanese makeup, and also Lisa Eldridge kind of used this formula in her eyeshadow palettes. So clearly there's a market for it, and it might just be me, but in my opinion, in order to get the level of shine I desire, which is like this level, I have to go in a lot. And even already from just kind of digging in so much, I feel like it's It's not exactly that's hard pan, but it's like, it's kind of hard to pick up more pigment at this point. Every time I do so, most of the pigment just gets stuck to my finger and doesn't really adhere to the lids. Especially on top of these matte shades, I feel like the adherence of the shimmer is not that great. And I basically couldn't get any of it on the lower lash line. So that's not something I'm a huge fan of. I do like to be able to just kind of very easily sweep some on my lower lash line if I want. Now these mattes blended very nicely, very, very easy to use, so that's great. I think if you're someone who doesn't really care that much about the shimmer side, or you just really, really want a tiny bit of sparkle, then I think this sort of formulation and layout is nice. In terms of this colorway, the reality is I don't know that I'm gonna actually go for this a lot, slash if I'm going for this sort of look, I probably would prefer going in with my Natasha Denona bronze palette. That's a very similar color story, but with way more shades and much more versatility. So definitely to me, one downside of picking up this bag is the color story that I got. I think if I could have picked from his website, I probably would have gone in with Tourmaline. I think that is the one that would have appealed to me most. Even Imperial Topaz, which is the more neutral one, I think would have been better. He only has 3 now, which I think he previously had more shades, but of the 3, Amber is definitely my least favorite color story, and it's probably the least popular overall, which is why it's in this bag. In terms of the lip gloss, I really like this. I love how it's looking. Like, just look at how healthy and shiny my lips look. They were so dry at the beginning of this video. So definitely would highly recommend his lip glosses, and same thing with his lip pencils as well. These are really great formulas. They're also super affordable. This is less than $30. This is like $14, so would definitely recommend looking into these. In terms of the eyeliner, I do like this formula, like I said, in my waterline, and I'm glad to have this in another shade. To be honest though, I probably will mostly stick to my Tiger's Eye shade because that's a shade I prefer in the waterline. But I would not recommend this for kind of on the lash line. I think I was able to make it work, but it was really hard and definitely dragged on my skin a lot. Now for the blush and highlight, this is for me kind of a middling formula overall, so I wouldn't really say like run out and buy this. There's plenty of formulas that I like better than this, especially the highlighter. I had kind of forgotten how the highlighter does have this sort of textured look on the skin, which I'm personally not a fan of. I think pretty much all of my other favorite highlighter formulas, like the Pat McGrath, the Dior, those leave a really seamless finish, and so I don't think there's any reason you need to have this particular finish instead. And like I said, for the blush, I do think this is a good blush if you're someone who kind of struggles with too much pigmentation. But for me, even like at this point already, I'm starting to feel like it's kind of fading and I need to reapply. It's just a very light and dusty formula, so it's just not gonna really stick to the skin. Very pretty when it's on, but the longevity is just not great. And then the bronzer, this is probably my biggest disappointment of this whole haul. I don't know what happened, but you know, maybe this is just way too deep for my skin tone, but it did feel like it was a formula problem, because usually for deeper bronzers, if I go in with a light hand and really buff it out, I can still make it work. But this shade in particular, just wherever I put it, it would just immediately adhere and not budge. This shade over here was better, but still not great, and in a very competitive bronzer market, I feel like this is just unfortunately not doing it for me. In terms of this brush, so I'm gonna have to, of course, wash this, have it bloom, and try it again, but at least upon initial impressions, I actually really enjoyed this. Like I mentioned, it's not the type of brush I typically use for my transition shades, but I think it did a really good job and kind of gave me a really easy way to do that kind of elongated, more dragon-like look. So from that perspective, I'm glad to have this in my collection. And then finally, we have the 2 lipsticks. So again, I did not open these, but I do have the 2 I already have. I do enjoy his cream lipstick formula quite a bit. It's not the most hydrating lipstick, but it is very long-lasting. And so for me in particular, I love bringing Iris around whenever I am traveling, because it's just the perfect shade that kind of goes with any look. It's great for work, and you don't really have to worry too much about reapplication. Now, of course, if you're gonna eat a lot and, wipe your lips, this is gonna fade. But considering how comfortable it is, it does have really good longevity. So those are my overall thoughts and initial impressions about this haul. I would love to hear in the comments if you guys have tried any of these Wayne Goss products, how they've worked for you. And if you guys picked up this year's bag, I would be very curious what you got as well. Let me know if you think this kind of lucky bag is worth it, and let me know if you enjoy this kind of content. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!